What's up guys, Ryan from AntScapes here. Today's video is my waterfall vases. Now I did end up buying two of these. One of them went completely wrong. I made it and the filter ended up breaking. I made another one. I didn't really think about like the logistics of how, I wanted it, how it would run. But anyway, I think by the third time I ended up finally getting it right, or to how I wanted it. The vase itself I was quite happy with. I ended up with two. The second one I made, I wasn't 100% happy, and there was a lot of flaws with it. But by the third one, I was happy, and I took my time and actually thought about the logistics of how I wanted it to look. But regardless, we'll get on with the video. You'll see exactly what happened, and I'll explain it as I go through. But as always, from me, peace and love. I'm out. Okay, so I'll show you the vase I actually used. I bought these from B&M's for £3, so there wasn't an expense there. I had these slate rocks left over from, actually it was from ant nests I collected from a guy local to me. He also had these rocks inside his garage, and he was just like, do you need these or do you want them? And obviously I was like, yeah, I could probably use them at some point. But this is an old filter I had from an aquarium I actually built for my parents. So I will be using that. This is the first one I built, which did go slightly wrong. You'll see where I'm building it up higher and higher. At this stage, I didn't think about adding the hole in the back of the vase. I didn't think about, how the power head would actually then clog up. Debris would get into it. So afterwards, I did have to make some changes. I added the cocoa fiber there because I knew they'd be hit by the rocks all the way up to the point where I can just use the rest of it for moss, things like that, and it would be hidden. But eventually I turned it on and it broke. This is the second one I made. I actually built it up on the lid, forgetting that the lid's wider than the hole. And once I'd made the whole structure, it then collapsed because I was trying to force it in the lid too much, having to chip away rock to make it fit. This is the level I wanted it at, and this is how it looked. Okay, it's messy, but I knew I could hide everything. The actual wire itself was hidden. I knew I could cut the cocoa fiber down to the size I needed it to be for them sort of stepping stone waterfall going down into that water body. But when I turned it on, it broke. The second one, which you just saw me doing, I foamed it. The expanding foam went too much. Couldn't get rid of all the excess foam. I do show you sort of roughly how I made it. It wasn't to my liking. I wasn't happy at all with this, and in the end I decided I'd start again with another one. But what I did do regardless was I decided to break it all down and actually make something out of it, take some excess foam out, things like that. There's some imperfections where it wasn't a 180-degree angle from the back to the front, as in you can see the foam and the silicone that was used to get those rocks inside this. It still works, and it served the purpose of what I wanted it to, but it's not exactly how I wanted it to look. It was messy with those excess bits of foam, and I know I could have done better. This one here, it broke, so I'm just explaining again how this one broke. And the second one, it took me a little bit of time to get it. You can see here I'm hiding the imperfection with my hand slightly there. You can see the little bit of white on the side near my hand, but it looks okay. It was kind of how I wanted it to look, but I did have a vision of it, sort of cascading down into the body of water, causing more splash as opposed to sort of running down, kind of like a waterfall off a cliff face. But what I'll do, I'll explain this one in a little bit more detail. The first thing I did was washed off some slate. Now I got these from, again, B&M, £6 for a huge sack, so I know I've got loads spare there. And I can potentially use that for other builds. Next one is aquarium silicon or aquarium safe silicon, and obviously my handy kitchen roll ready. The next thing is obviously this. You can see by the sort of how hard it is, but I use that as a base. Some tubing, a pump which unfortunately didn't have a plug where you can take it off and adjust it slightly. And by that I just mean, I couldn't physically put that through the hole because I drilled a hole in the glass. Reason being I had to chop it off, but I couldn't just reconnect it. I had to buy a completely new plug, the same ampage, all that sort of stuff, and another vase. But this time what I did is I built the body around the top lid just so it was more accurate. So I cut out that circle, put it on the top, and then I actually cut the circle even more. You know, the circle itself didn't end up being a circle, but as long as I knew I had a guide that fit in the center, once I'd cut out the circle, obviously I put it in the middle. This circle didn't fit because it obviously is slightly wider, so I cut the edges to the point where you know, I can physically get it inside and build the body of it all around that, which did work perfectly. I don't know why I put my thumb up at that point, because obviously here you can see I'm cutting it down so I can fit it in the center. As you know, this is my guide. It ended up not being a circle, it was completely wonky, but it fit the purpose. It went inside, and in the end the guide itself was good, because once I dropped the slate in from stacking that up to the height of the vase, you know, I could physically get it down. Yep, more like a thumb down there. So you can see here I'm just sort of looking at the pump, thinking to myself how I'm going to do it. So I ended up just splicing it, getting a new plug off Amazon and rewiring it. So you know, the ones essentially that you can screw off, that one you couldn't. So you know, when I cut it, I had to physically rewire it. I couldn't just take it out of the plug from the offset, put it through the hole, and then you know, well, basically just screw it back in and jobs are good. I had to physically cut the wire, buy a new plug, and then splice the wire to fit inside the new plug socket. And at this point you will see I'm just sort of getting a nice guide, getting the rocks there, seeing which ones work well with different heights, things like that. But eventually, and you'll see, I stack it up to the height of the vase. The difficulty I had with this is that I left the tubing on. The reason I left it on is so I knew I still had the exact amount of space I needed, and it wouldn't have been more sort of difficult down the line getting that reattached once I put it in. The issue I had is that it kept tilting forwards because the tubing, you know, obviously is slightly warped. It kept pushing forwards as I was trying to silicone the rocks on. There you saw I was just drilling a hole in the glass with a diamond drill bit, spraying it down in between drills every minute or so, and that was enough to go through. Make sure you are gentle when you're doing this, because obviously they are prone to cracking, things like that, especially with a thin vase from B&Ms. So when you're doing it, just nice and gentle. It'll, you know, once you get like a sort of a rough little guide in it, it sort of just takes itself through the rest of the way, and you know, there's not much to worry about after that, as long as you're gentle enough, I guess. You can also see in the time lapse I am sort of checking the, you know, the vase itself, trying to put it over bit by bit. I'm showing the pump there, I'm showing the issue with that, I'm just making sure it's a nice height. There's the hole in the vase, and that's pretty much it. At this stage, for the last part, I did put the rock on the wire as well, because obviously that was making it slide slightly. You can see the difficulty I have here every time I'm checking and things like that. You can see it is pushing the rocks, which led to like the middle section coming out slightly. To me, that was okay, because I thought it added different texture to that stack, as long as it was still in line with obviously the you know, the base. This is after I added moss, so you can see they always do hide some slight imperfections. But this was pretty much it. I was just really happy with the end result. It was kind of the drip that I wanted. I didn't want it too over the top. I know the filter that I got is obviously, you know, it is a very difficult filter to block up. So I know I won't have problems. I've sort of over exceeded the filter I needed, knowing that it will clog eventually. And obviously I can't really go down and maintain the filter. It is more of a temporary thing. I will end up taking this out probably, you know, in a few months' time. We'll get a little update on it, see how it's going. But ultimately for me, this was sort of a mini project. I know I can interchange here and there, but I absolutely love the final result. But if you like this video, or you like more videos like this, remember to drop a comment down below, subscribe to the channel so you can see future updates, more builds like this. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed making it. But as always from me, guys, peace and love. I'm out.